It's the former home of the Sun King, Louis XIV, and even if the sun's not really out, Versailles is always worth a visit. It's one of France's most popular tourist destinations. Over 6 million people flock here every year. They come for the opulent apartments, the sumptuous gardens, and of course the historical significance of the site. But in addition to all of that, every summer the castle puts on a cultural programme that's fit for a king. Come rain or shine, Versailles has invited contemporary artists to leave their mark on the gardens and the interiors every year since 2008. Creative collaborations that have ranged from kitsch to controversial, featuring Jeff Koons, Takeshi Murakami and Anish Kapoor in recent years. This year, the prestigious brief has been given to Olafur Eliasson. The Danish-Icelandic artist is known for creating experiences as much as objects, immersive spaces that force the viewer to participate in the art. He first captured the crowds with a mysterious weather system in the Tate Modern's Turbine Hall in 2003, before the Louis Vuitton Foundation hosted his intergalactic voyage in 2014. His Ice Watch sculpture of melting blocks of ice was a fitting metaphor for climate change in Paris during the COP21 conference. Environmental and elemental concerns that he's now brought to Versailles. France 24's culture editor Louise Dupont spoke to him about the show.
Hello, Olafur Eliasson. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about being here.
Do you remember the first time you came here in Versailles?
I came once as a student, which is a long time ago. But then I came in the late fall when I had received this exciting invitation to make an exhibition here. And it was beautiful because there was no leaves on the trees. It was very quiet, very atmospheric. I came early in the morning and I walked around all by myself. So it was lovely.
Obviously, Versailles is a very prestigious place with such a long history. Did you feel a bit nervous about showing your work here?
Well, I'm always nervous, to be honest, out showing my work anywhere, really. I had an exhibition in a kindergarten not so long time ago. That was I made really nervous for that, so this is actually okay. Now, it's exciting because Versailles, of course, have had several exhibitions already, so I'm very excited about being in this program and so on. And they have worked with difficult people like myself before, so I wasn't too worried, to be honest.
Last year, Anish Kapoor had to face violent criticism about his work shown here. Was this controversy in your mind when you worked on your project here?
No, I of course looked into it, and if you think about culture and throughout history, there has been controversies very often actually, and this is what culture does, right? Culture is really also about challenging people. So I think imagine if we had a cultural sector, not just in France, but everywhere, where there would be no controversies. It would be so boring. So I wasn't worried at all. I focused on making the best possible exhibition, and I did not change anything because of what Anish had to live through.
Inside the chateau, you're playing with light and reflections. Why do you like light so much?
Well, I use light quite often because I'm interested in the fact that everybody knows what it is, but nobody can really tell where it is. And it's exciting because it's so dematerialized or ephemeral that the person experiencing it becomes also very present. So when you make a light sculpture, the person who's looking at it almost becomes the sculpture, because the looking at light or experience of light is in fact very inspiring. And I like this moment when the people or the viewer, the spectator, becomes more important than the work of art.
We often find natural elements in your art. Here in Versailles, you've installed the tallest fountain in Europe, but you've also worked with the riverbed, with the sun. Why is nature such an inspiration for you?
Well, I think nature is amazing, and so I actually draw a lot of inspiration from nature. But the thing is also, I'm interested in the fact when I was a child, the idea of nature being untouched by man still existed. Now I'm a grown-up and I've learned that nature is in fact nowadays always somehow influenced by man, such as the climate, right? imagine 30 or 20 years ago, the fact that people would change the climate was incomprehensible. So I'm very interested in nature. It's not just a resource for inspiration about beauty and so on. It's actually also about the state of the world today. So nature is a good topic when you want to address questions of how do we people live in the world and how is nature reacting to that.
And then your art is very topical. It echoes the issues that makes the news, the headlines today. Do you think art is political? Is your art political?
Well, I think art fundamentally is political. Some art is more specific and explicitly political, and some art is more abstract and gradually more political over time, maybe. So I do think that culture is a part of society. It's a part of what co-creates society. It's a place where we negotiate our values. What is my values, I ask myself. And that will always be a political question too. So I think art is like a voice, a vibrant voice in a dialogue which shapes our reality. And in that way, I think it's political. I'm not so interested in political art per se myself, even though I think it's important that this exists too.
But do you hope your art will change things?
Changes things, just as Versailles changed a lot, of course, for the better and the worse. But quite frankly, I think art is not like something that which stands outside of the world and then pushes the world to change it. Art is really inside of the world, being a participant in almost like in a forum, the forum of reality, and doing so, it will always change the world. Even a small little drawing is a small little change to the world.
Thank you so much, Olafur Eliasson.
Thank you.
If contemporary art isn't your thing, the palace is not short of more traditional attractions. Closed for the last 10 years, the Royal Coach Museum has just reopened after some important renovations. It's one of the most impressive collections of royal carriages in Europe. Each specimen gives us an insight into French history and the technology of the time.
Once vehicles of pomp and ceremony, now tucked away in the stables of the Château de Versailles, these royal chariots were created for coronations, weddings and funerals by the best artisans in the kingdom. The carriages showcase some important technical innovations, still used in car manufacturing today. The crown jewel of the collection is this carriage made for the coronation of Charles X in 1825. Pulled by 8 horses, it's one of the biggest in the world, 4.5 meters high and nearly 7 meters long. Its steering system was revolutionary.
This hitch here allowed the front wheel to pass under, and so the steering angle of the wheel increased from 30 to 90 degrees. This is a significant innovation that we find still today in cars. The second big progress was in suspension. Here we have large springs, which ensure the comfort and flexibility of the car.
With its velvet seats and gold embroidery, the carriage was a moving throne, a symbol of power designed to impress. Even children had their own. This cart belonged to the Dauphin, the oldest son of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette.
These weren't just toys. These mini carriages taught the future king how to live the high life and how to drive a carriage, albeit with goats or dogs rather than horses. There are lots of stories of a young Louis XIV chasing ducks around in a mini carriage pulled by dogs.
Less joyously, this hearse was built for the funeral of Louis XVIII in 1824. Unusually, this royal cart would later be used by some less kingly occupants for the funerals of 2 French presidents, Sadi Carnot and Félix Faure. A republican end for this most regal mode of transport.
What better way to end your visit to Versailles than a stroll through these gardens? And if you linger until after dark, you'll see the fountains here lit up in a dazzling array of colours, accompanied by Baroque music. It's a spectacular show, first staged by Louis XIV some 350 years ago. It still delights visitors today.